Hallo zusammen, hier ist Mareike von Irish Whiskeys und heute habe ich zum ersten Mal im Livestream Gäste aus Irland dabei. Hi, hello together. I will have a live stream tonight with Louise and Niamh from J Corry. And yeah, please go ahead, tell who you are.
I'm Louise and Niamh. I'm founder of Corry Irish Whiskey, and so we're a whiskey bonder, and we're based on the west coast of Ireland. So what we do is that we don't distill, we never will. Rather, we source whiskey from all of the older and newer distilleries all around the island of Ireland, and in the case of new make, we bring that whiskey down here to our farm to mature in casks that we pick to match with that new make spirit. And then in the case of the mature stocks that we source, we blend those to create our own unique house styles. And it's a really old business model. It was very common in Ireland up until about the 1930s when it died out. And we were the first ones to bring it back. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Great to hear. So, there are already lots of good evenings. Hello all together. We have already lots of viewers. So, yeah, so Niamh, maybe you can go ahead, who you are and what you do.
Cool. So, hey everyone, thank you for joining us here tonight. It's our first ever live stream, let alone with Mareike, which is pretty cool. So, my name is Niamh, and I am the UK and German brand ambassador for J Corry. So, my job essentially is going around from city to city, bar to bar, spreading the J Corry word.
Great to hear. So tonight, we will taste some whiskey. We will talk about J Corry. And of course, you all guys have the possibility to ask questions. You can do that in German or English. I can do the translation, no problem. And yeah, we would just like to have a nice evening with you, some conversation, and tell you the story about J Corry and how Irish Whiskeys met J Corry and to bring it here to Germany. Yeah, so we started to work together in 2016, and I founded the J Corry the Gale on the internet, and it was before it was officially launched. I think it was before it was bottled, and I contacted.
Definitely before it was bottled.
Yeah, yeah.
Because what we do is we launch stuff and then we bottle it later because we figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
like the social media is going like this.
Yeah,
before anything happens.
Yeah, Louise, maybe you need to go a bit closer to the microphone. You are,
okay, I'll come closer.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So, yeah, I wrote an email to Louise, and then we had our first phone call, and it was nothing in a bottle. But I was like, okay, I really would like to have that whiskey. So we figured out a way what we can do. So Louise went over to Germany. I think it was in October or August when we had our whiskey and barbecue at Stefan at the Land Hotel Rümpflik near Fulda. And Louise just came with some bottles of liquid, so no labeling. You remember? Yeah.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really good evening, and I think, I sold bottles before they were bottled or they were over in Germany. It was crazy.
Yeah, like the problem with that was, and this is a really interesting thing about starting an Irish whiskey company back then, and it's not that long ago, it's only a couple of years ago. So it's a great idea to start an Irish whiskey company, and you know, back then, 2015, 2016, you could source whiskey and you could kind of put a blend together for it. But what you couldn't do was bottle it. And the reason that you couldn't bottle it is that there just weren't the facilities, and there still aren't the facilities on the island to accommodate small runs. So the first bottling of the Gale that I had wanted to do was 7,500 bottles, right, total for the world. And we blended it in, honestly, like I want to say July. I think we blended it in July of that year. And you were asking me, when can I ship it? When can I ship it? And I was like, oh, I'll ship it in August. It'll be great. Nobody would bottle it for me because it was 7,500 bottles. All of the bottling companies in Ireland, all 2 or 3 of them, couldn't care less about us because they're accustomed to doing like 50, 80, 90,000 bottle runs. And I remember going to a bottling facility and they were bottling Slane whiskey at the time, right? It was a new brand at the time. And they had taken over the bottling facility for a week to bottle this thing, the first run of Slane. And I said to them, how long will it take to bottle my run? And they said 90 minutes. So nobody would like take the time out of their production schedule, and I don't blame them, to bottle for us. So in the end, we got a cancellation at a bottling facility, and we managed to get that bottled, I think, in like September. But it had been sitting in a tank for months and months and months, which is quite good actually, because you wanted to sit in a tank for as long as possible to kind of marry anyway.
Yeah.
But it was torturous, which is why we've set up our own bottling facility.
Yeah, very good. So
And
maybe
that was the Gale. I'm going to pour.
That's the Gale.
I'm pouring
You
some now.
have the Gale 1, and Andreas is writing that they have Gale 1 and 2 in the glass. So maybe you can have Gale 1. I just have Gale 2. So I take the Gale 2. Niamh, what are you taking?
Cool. Do you know what? I have a really cute mini from our tweet tasting of Gale Batch 2. So I think I'm going to join you with a Gale Batch 2 as well tonight.
Very good. So here is the comparison. So I have from Gale 2 are just 2,800 bottles. So we can compare.
Yeah. So Gale 1 was 7,500 bottles because that was a big batch for us, and it's still a big batch for us at the time. And we used a lot of our older whiskey stocks in Gale 1 and in Gale 2. So this is the first whiskey that we ever made. So the brief on this was, I need to make a really, really good blended whiskey, you know, that kind of proves that we can take other people's stock that we're sourcing and do something really great with it and be proud of that. So it's a 60% malt, 40% grain blend, which is flipped. It's normally the other ratio in Irish whiskey. And we did that very consciously because we wanted to make sort of a bigger kind of more rounded sort of statement when it came to the blend. And I used in this all of our old stocks. There was 25-year-old malt in this, 5%. There was 11-year-old malt and 15-year-old malt. And nobody ever believes me when I tell them that that I've actually used our 25-year-old in this within the industry, because they think I'm nuts. But we needed to use kind of our older stocks to create that big sort of bold, well-rounded, juicy fruit flavors that you get in the Gale. It has lovely sort of green apple notes in it and big sort of white stone fruits. It's a really good sort of expression of a fruit bomb of an Irish whiskey, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It really is a juicy fruit bomb, like straight up. And whenever I've done whiskey shows, people are always blown away by how, as soon as you say peach, they're like, oh my God, it's a peach bomb. But I think what really like sparks people's interest with Gale is you do get that minerality and like peppercorn spice with it, like midway through the palate, which is actually really refreshing because it cuts through that sweetness.
Yeah.
And I remember as well when we were blending this, there's a beautiful like sort of creamy long finish in this as well. And there's 40% grain in this. And when it went in at the time, I think it was 9-year-old grain. I can't remember actually now off the top of my head. 9-year-old grain. And we didn't dump that in the end, but like we had a vat of grain ready to go, and then we added that to the blend, and suddenly the blend elongated by, you know, a country mile. So the length that you get and the creaminess that you get on the back of the Gale Batch 1 is coming from that grain, which really kind of sparked my interest in grain, like in terms of how we were going to express it in the future. Yeah, so the Gale Batch 1 is our foundation. You know, this is what started it all. This is what kind of, this is the foundation of us building a house style, which we're still building out, to be honest with you, because we're still really, really young.
Yeah. What I think is, I really like the batch 1. Unfortunately, I have nothing left. So what I did some weeks ago, I tried batch 1 and batch 2 in each glass. And I think the batch 2 is more complex than batch 1. Yeah. And you have a bit more spices, but it's still fruity. And so I also really, really like Gale Batch 2. I think it's on top of batch 1.
Yeah, I think what we call it is like, and here it is, actually. It's nice to be a whiskey maker because you can just like lean back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is batch 2. So you need to spot the difference on these labels too, right? So batch 2 labels is not as transparent as batch 1.
Yeah.
Because we're not allowed to tell the truth on our labels anymore.
Spill the tea.
Yeah.
But from a flavor standpoint, so, you know, it took us longer than I thought it would to get to batch 2, because we released a lot of whiskeys kind of in between Gale 1 and 2. And so when we got to batch 2, everything was actually like 3 years older, I guess.
2 years older.
It's actually everything was really 3 years older by the time we got to it. I thought that we'd be doing batch 2 after 2 years. So the 25-year-old was 28 years old, and the 15-year-old was 18 years old, etc., etc. We kept exactly the same ratio of just about in terms of all of the components of the blend, but we just tweaked them a little bit to kind of make it balance a bit better. So it's really interesting when you do a batch like this of the same parcels of whiskey, the same flavor blocks of whiskey, except that they're older, and you put them together in the same ratios. What you end up seeing is basically a grown-up version of the whiskey that you made before. Because everything has a couple of more years on it. And particularly with the malts, when you're getting into those kind of age levels, you're going to see fairly rapid transformations in cask of a 25-year-old to a 28-year-old. Like, it really does happen. You're starting to see big differences at that kind of point. So, so 2 is it's the Gale, but it's just there's a lot more going on in it, I think. You know.
Yeah, I think we get some comments for batch 2. So Sabine, you know Sabine and Andreas.
Hey.
She says that the batch, so they are comparing at the moment at home 1 and 2, and she says batch 2 is more intense overall on the nose, on the smell, and on the taste. But she loves both, so that's very good. And Kevin is asking a question: what's the usual ratio of malt to grain?
It's the other way around. It's normally 60% grain, 40% malt is the usual ratio in an Irish whiskey blend. That'd be a pretty decent Irish whiskey blend. There's a lot of scope in between that, but normally it'd be a lot heavier on the grain side, essentially.
Yeah, but your ratio is the other way around.
64.
You do, yeah.
64.
Okay,
so
very
60
good.
malt. You're getting a lot more like you build. What we do is like we build a blend around the malt vatting. So when we make the Gale, it's basically 4 whiskey vattings, four blends. Basically, we make 4 blends of the 4 vintages that are in it, and then we blend those together. Like that's how we build a whiskey, and that what we build blends, you know, like we put one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. So you start with your core kind of malt vatting, and in our case for the Gale, it's the 2002 and the 2006 malts that we have. So that's our kind of body. So you blend those together, and then you vat those, and that's your kind of your heart of your blend. And then you structure stuff around that. The 1991 that we use, the 28-year-old or the 29-year-old is like it's a top dressing. It's just a little top note that adds a kind of nice layer on the top. And then the grain that we add in then is giving that length and that finish and a bit more mouthfeel as well, really. So we'll just go away and create 4 individual whiskeys and then stick them all together and then vat them all together to create the Gale, really.
Very good. There was another question. Maybe we go more into now. Jürgen is asking, what about the whiskey thief? So I think that was the latest one you did on the Celtic whiskey auction. Yeah.
What a surprise!
On my shelf here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the whiskey thief. And all right, I'll tell you the story of this. So first of all, from a whiskey perspective, the whiskey thief is a blended grain, right? So it's like the Hansen, which is a grain whiskey that we're going to be coming out with. It's like I said earlier, I'm actually a very big fan of grain whiskey. You know, I think it's undersold and undersung. Yeah. And it's sold cheap very often and people don't think about it. And there's a lot to be said for a well-made, well-matured, like meticulously sort of good wood program, good cask selection grain whiskey. So I was going to do a single grain and I was going to do this and I was going to do that. And then I realized, forget it, we're going to do a blended grain because as whiskey bonders, our job is to collect whiskey flavors from all over the country and to put them together. Like that's what differentiates us, really. So we had a 3-year-old grain and a 10-year-old grain, and we put them together in a number of different vattings, just to kind of try out a number of different directions with it. The Whiskey Thief ended up being a charity bottling for a really great charity in Ireland called Dress for Success. It's a global charity, and it's an organization that helps women to kind of get into the workplace, underprivileged women. And obviously we're very into that because, you know, we support women professionally in any endeavor. So I felt like it was a nice charity for us to support. And then we worked with these designers called Jill and Jill, who are an Irish design duo to design the label. So it's only 100 bottles, and it was a charity bottling. Literally 100 bottles, and I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was one of the trial bottlings for our new grain, blended grain, which is called the Hansen, which I have right behind me.
Behind door number 3.
That's great. So it's actually it's not similar, but it's like in the same family as the Hansen, which is also a blended grain of a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old grain whiskey from 2 different distilleries. It's just a different ratio of the blend to the Hansen, essentially. So to answer the question specifically, this was just kind of a toe in the water. We had a number of blended grains lined up that we were choosing between. We put this one out there for charity because I wanted to just sort of get it out there. But the real one commercially that you're going to see from a blended grain from us is this one, the Hansen, which is coming out whenever all this stuff is over, essentially. Yeah, this one, they're gingery. So if you want to know the flavor profile, delicious kind of ginger, kind of almost vanilla ginger flavors. They're really beautiful. Not so floral, actually, like more of those kind of ginger spice notes with a bit of vanilla going through. It's a really nice expression of a grain, and our very young grain as well is showing particularly well, which we're happy with.
Yeah, I had a chance to taste it, and it is quite mellow and rich. and I can't wait for it to be released because it is going to be amazing in highballs. I think it's going to be like a really good summery go-to drink. So yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, this will
Yeah.
be about 50 euros, probably less in Germany, but that price point, like it's a lower kind of a price point for us. But it's a bit more accessible, really. 700 milliliter bottles only, essentially.
And I haven't tasted it yet, but I know that Louise has really good grain casks. And so I'm really looking forward to it because I think also that grain whiskey is really underrated. And I think maybe it will be available in May here in Germany. So hopefully, yeah, as soon as we can all collect everything, and yeah, we will have it here in Germany. There were some other questions. So Andreas told us that he got a bottle of the Thieves and she should arrive tomorrow.
Oh, amazing.
And then Laurie from Whiskey Chats podcast asking, Louise, can you speak about the label issues with batch one, the Gale? Have you given up that fight, or do you have a strategy for label transparency with JJ Corry?
Okay, I'm going to show you exactly what the issue is, all right? So where's Gale 1? Okay. So this is the Gale 1 label. Yeah, maybe put it up there. And the Gale 1 label, as you can see, is very transparent. It lists all of the components of the blend. Right?
Yeah, and here in comparison is the
number 2 label.
I can't line it up to
here's Gale 2. So there's the comparison.
Yeah, so Gale number 1 tells you it's got 5% of this, 27.5% of that, etc., etc. And then Gale number 2 just says a blend of grain and malt whiskey. And you guys cannot imagine the trouble that I've had with this. Like in terms of, I really fought it very hard, and then I had to give up. So there's an EU regulation, and it's called EU Reg 110/2008. And the reason that this regulation exists is that a very long time ago, the people who make Johnny Walker Blue, actually, there was some issues around age statements on their labels. So they were maybe not kind of, proclaiming a particular whiskey to be older than it might have been, or the percentages to be older than it might have been. So the EU brought in a regulation, and they said, when it comes to a blended whiskey, you are only allowed to list the youngest whiskey in the blend. And that's great in that, like, okay, it kind of keeps people on the straight and narrow. But the problem for me is that as a producer, I am not allowed to choose to tell you everything that's in the blend. So I'm not allowed to disclose to you that there is 99% 25-year-old and 1% 4-year-old, for example. I'm not allowed to tell you that. I would have to say that it's a 4-year-old whiskey in that case. So, when I first started making whiskey, Irish whiskey was kind of unregulated, to be honest with you. So I said I would test the water on that law. And I submitted the Gale Batch 1 label with all the transparency on it to the Department of Agriculture, to the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, to the Health Service Executive, and to the Department of Revenue, all of them. And I said, this is my label, like, here it is. Can I release this label? And they said, yes, sure, whatever, after about 5 weeks. And I said, great. So I released this label, very transparent label, and everybody was all delighted that somebody was being very transparent.
True.
And like, we love this label, it's so good. And then I got a letter from the Irish Whiskey Association saying that there'd been a member complaint, and they were going to have to refer me to the Department of Agriculture, who were going to take me to court. And I got this letter threatening me with a lawsuit, and a product recall, basically. So it was awful. This is just after I'd shipped stuff to you, Mareike. Like, it was just when we started out, it was soul destroying. So it was really bad. So I had all these arguments with these departments, and I said, you approved the label. You approved it. Like, what do you want me to do about it? And they just said, it's your fault. You're responsible. So I got really angry, and I've had a lot of arguments with them since. But in the end, I changed my label because I don't have, like, I can either run a whiskey business and make sure that everybody has a job to go to in the morning and make sure that we're making good whiskey and focus on that, or I can just fight with the authorities for the next 10 years. So I've chosen for now just to toe the line and to make sure that I'm compliant about my labels. But I think that that's a law that needs to change. I can't change it as a single whiskey maker. Consumers are going to have to demand that change. And it's in everybody's hands out there to demand that change. Like, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. It's, when the big guys tell.
But like, Louise, you made a really good point that, like, when I'm at a whiskey show in a really small town in the centre of the UK, or even when we're in Germany doing shows together, Mareike, and someone discovers JJ Corry for the first time, and they pick up the bottle and see the ages and the years it was distilled listed so blatantly on the front bottle, like, they're blown away by it, and it's like a huge talking point. And to have that stripped away, it does suck a little bit, because it is part of our identity. Like, we love talking about our components in our blends, you know.
Like, it hurts me personally. Like, I have a real issue with it. Like, Niamh, you know this. I don't get angry about a lot of things.
Triggered.
But I can understand.
I get really angry about this. I'm pretty chill, you know. I'm pretty chill.
You are. No, it's true, but it is very annoying. And like, especially when it comes to the Gale, and it's our flagship blend, and like, we all hold it so close to our heart, because this is the bottle that we lead with whenever we're introducing someone to JJ Corry, and it sucks. It really does. Like,
but I think, you're not allowed to do it on the front. But are you allowed, or are you allowed? You are not allowed to do anything.
So I did it on the back for a while.
Don't tell anyone.
And then eventually they were just like, no, can I see the back as well? So we can't. I have pushed it as far as I can push it, okay? And now we just have to make compliant labels, and that's it.
Okay.
So now we are completely compliant in every label that we make, and it's very depressing to me, but it's just depressing.
For me also, because I really liked it when I do the blends on your side, that I can tell what I did. So I can tell it in the tastings, of course, and on trade shows, but it's not on the bottle. And the people here, they are getting very experimental, what you could do for telling, but I think everything's not allowed. But there was an interesting question, because Niamh was talking about the highballs, and maybe this is interesting for everybody who's at home now. Pete was asking what other serves you can suggest with a gay one, not just a highball, maybe other cocktails or something easy we can do at home.
Okay. Do you want to go first? Will I go first? Okay. So last summer, first of all, I know nothing about cocktails, and I will never pretend to know anything about cocktails until I actually know something. And I'm rubbish at making them, but I really enjoy drinking them. I'm very good at that. So over the summer, I discovered highballs, and Louise, it was when we did PX Plus Festival, and we used we used a pink peppercorn mixer from Merchant Heart. I think that was the name of the brand.
Yeah.
So it was a pink peppercorn mixer, like a shot serving of Gale, mixer, ice, stir, and drink. And it was so delicious and refreshing and really good because I do really enjoy like gin and tonics when it's sunny outside, but I feel like the whiskey highball is like a really nice replacement for a gin and tonic, and there's so much flavor and they're just really sippable and sessionable and delicious because there's so many different flavor combinations out there. And yeah, it's just easy to make, you know. So yeah, I really like pink peppercorn with the Gale. Apple works really well too.
Yeah, like I think I know the question was around what else other than highballs. Like, so we've had some brilliant cocktails that have been made by proper bartenders, you know, around the Gale, and they're very, very, you know, there's 15 ingredients, and it's honestly kind of like, don't try this at home. So we've worked a lot with the Gale to try to figure out what the best cocktail is, and honestly, we've landed on the highball. But there's do's and don'ts, right? So ginger ale and ginger beer are awful with the Gale.
Don't
really
even.
bad.
No.
It's not a combo that works at all. Because there's those kind of tropical fruit flavors in the Gale in particular, anything with those kind of tropical fruit notes is really good. So like any, you know, the nice thing is that I find is that if you can go to your local supermarket or just, you know, reach into the fridge for a couple of ingredients and make something, it's just much easier. Like 3 ingredients is about the max. Yeah. So the one that I love with the Gale, and this is so simple, is a very, very good organic apple juice. Whatever kind you like, but like I like kind of like a sharp organic apple juice. And I'm only saying organic just because they tend to be fresher, quite frankly, like as fresh as you can get. So 2 parts that, 2 parts soda water, like fizzy soda water, and then 1 or 2 parts Gale over ice with a twist of lime is really good, really refreshing and delicious. And then if you want to go to your local supermarket and go get, you know, you can get San Pellegrino flavored water. So there's a really good one called Pomelo. And that is excellent. Like you get 2 parts of the Gale and then 3 parts of that over ice, again with a twist of lime, is really, really, really good. I've done whiskey sours with the Gale, pretty good, but I think it might be a bit of a waste, to be honest with you. There's a bit too much going on there. It's a bit too complex. That should be more of a simple thing. But just seek out anything with kind of those green apricot or tropical flavors with a bit of carbonation over ice. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to go down a really, really long path of like bartendery stuff that even I can't go down, and I've been doing it for a long time.
Very good. So, Niamh, I should say greetings from Torsten from Nuremberg.
Oh, hi. How are you?
He does not know anything about cocktails, but he worked as a bartender. You know his humor.
Really good at those Muldoon cocktails at Nuremberg a couple of weeks ago. He was firing them out.
And Neil is asking, so we are still here in the chat about the transparency on the label. So Neil is asking if you can do it as a component of marketing. And Thomas says, have you thought about the secret language on the bottle?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So I've thought about everything, right? Okay, so I've thought about blockchain, and I've thought about like labels that when you put your phone over them, like augmented reality. And I've thought about barcodes, and I've thought about websites, and I've thought about everything. But I got into so much trouble about this, right? For now, I'm just going to toe the line, all right? Yeah. And if anybody asks me, I will tell them what's in the whiskey, and we can talk about it. It's a gray area, whether you can put it on, you can really talk about it or not. It's a bit of a gray area, but we still put it out there, and we still tell people. So for now, we've been beaten down on this, and all of our labels are perfectly compliant, right? But the consumer is going to demand a change in this, and we are going to provide that change. So just I'm going to let things settle for a little while, and we'll figure out a way of informing the consumer that's within the law, but that allows the consumer to understand, why are you spending 60 euros on a bottle of whiskey? Like, you should know why. I want to be able to tell you, but I can't right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get there.
Okay, very good. So here is another thing that Louise, you are a bit too low from the volume, so the people cannot really hear you very good.
I'll get closer.
Okay, very good. And then Niamh Thorsten is asking you if you're fine in England. I think you're in Ireland.
So I'm actually back in Ireland now because of COVID. So
Yeah.
I'm actually in shock that my Wi-Fi connection is actually working tonight, because like, similar to where Louise is based in Curraclare, where I live in Limerick is in the middle of the countryside. And I'm looking out my sitting room window right now, and there's cows out in the fields. So we're talking countryside, people. Like,
Very
honestly.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So no more questions at the moment. So
Will we pour another dram?
Yeah, we can pour another dram. So what I have here, where I have just a bit left, I have just a few bottles left, and I know that you are out of stock with it. I have the flintlock, and maybe as a special for our first live stream, we could have a flintlock together.
Yeah. This is very special. We're really cracking open the good stuff tonight.
Yeah. Look at this one. So this one doesn't have a bottom label on it.
I can show you mine.
Yeah, this one doesn't. This is a reject, I think. This one.
So if you show the front right, I can show the back.
Okay, I do that. Whoa.
So yeah.
Now this is a compliant label, right? Because this is just it was just a 16-year-old single malt, and this was just three single malt casks, 16-year-old single malt casks that we put together. And I think people forget that, like, with a single malt is a single malt, but you still have to blend it. Like, you still have to pick the right casks and put them together to get a particular kind of expression. And this was done, it was the first single malt that we ever did, and it was kind of trying to build out that idea of kind of what does a JJ Corry single malt kind of taste like. So there's still a huge amount of fruit in this. It's still very much kind of in the JJ Corry wheelhouse, but it's next level kind of compared to the Gale. And there's only about 650, I can't remember, a couple hundred bottles of this really ever done. It was just 3 casks, and we bottled it at 46%.
650.
650 bottles.
Yeah.
So we bottled it at 46%, because that's just kind of our magic number at the moment. And it just means that there's no chill filtration, never any artificial color or any of that stuff. But yeah, I haven't had this in a while, actually. It's really, there's none of this left. Mareike, you're the only person in the world who has this anymore. Nobody else has it.
Some left. Yeah. Okay, when we are pouring, here another. Okay. So there was one question I missed according to cocktails. They were asking one guy if you can do that with flavored tonics. I don't think so. Or
it depends on the flavor. Quinine is tough to work with. I think it's better with soda waters, because quinine is tough going. So flavored soda waters, ideally.
Yeah.
So, okay, very good. So Sabine is asking if there will be another flintlock.
Yes, we're working on it right now.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh, it smells very good.
Yeah.
And Ryan is asking if there is a plan for another version of The Chosen.
Actually, right behind me.
Right behind you. Very good.
This is the original. This is the original. This one. Hang on.
Oh, this is the very first prototype you had.
Yeah, this is like.
That's awesome.
I can tell you something about the bottle and the boxes. When we were over by the end of July, beginning of August, you had all the boxes in your house, and we were at the house with my son, and I saw these boxes, and I told him, go 1 meter away from those boxes. Don't touch them.
We kept those boxes in my house because they were so expensive.
Yeah.
So expensive. I was paranoid to keep them anywhere.
Yeah.
So they were in the hallway of my house for a long time. Actually.
Yeah. And I think here is one question from the Irish Whiskey magazine that's really interesting. What do you think about the prices from your releases achieved on the secondary market?
I don't care.
Good. It's really good because I think the Bonders plant number 2 we did, that's crazy.
I don't care. I think I appreciate the whiskey collector market, but like it's not something that we can really. It's just strange. I don't know. It's an interesting. We're very lucky that people like our whiskeys enough to think that they're collectible. I am greatly appreciative of that. But the secondary market is not something we particularly pay too much attention to, because it's the secondary market. You know, our job is to get really good whiskey into people's glasses, and then to get it from the glasses into their tummy.
Yeah.
That's kind of my goal in life. Like, I think we have the most dedicated and the most wonderful fans for JJ Corry. And some of the secondary market thing is crazy. So, but, you know, God, thank you everybody for supporting us. But the secondary market is not our market. You know, our market is to get it into your glass really more than anything else.
I must be honest, from the Irish Whiskey Friends release we did here in Germany, lots of bottles are opened and tasted, and I'm really happy about that because we can talk about it. So there was one comment earlier from Christian. He got a bottle of this and he's sipping it this evening and listened to us, so that's really good. And here was another thing. Okay, maybe that's some interesting point in general. What's your opinion of distilleries selling sourced whiskey and not being terribly honest about that? I think that's changing.
Yeah,
most are honest.
Yeah, I think we're the industry is, you know, has changed even in the last few years. I think in the beginning, there wasn't enough people in the industry to be a voice for change. But there's enough people now who are holding other people accountable. I think it's good. Obviously, my opinion is that you should just tell the truth in everything that you do, and you should be authentic in your life and in your whiskey bottle. Well, like Niamh, what do you think? You joined the industry a little bit later. How do you feel about it? Do you see it changing or?
To be honest, with the new guard that are on the scene right now, I think there is more of a leaning towards transparency. Like at whiskey shows, and I've met other producers, and they would talk about or other brand ambassadors, they would talk about the provenance of their bottling, which I appreciate, like working for JJ Corry, because that's our bread and butter. So I think there is a demystification like happening in the Irish whiskey category right now. And also I think Irish whiskey drinkers are more clued in right now, and they know if they see a brand new distillery with a 15-year-old single malt bottling, you know, that's only coming from one or two places, like, quite frankly. so people know, and like there's no shame in that whatsoever, because it's delicious liquid at the end of the day. So that's what I think. That's what I've seen so far being out and about.
Yeah, I think here, I have often this discussions here in Germany. For JJ Corry, it's easy because I always can tell there is no distillery. There will never be a distillery. You get whiskeys from different distilleries and a blend. And for new distilleries, I think it's getting more and more transparent. And some years ago, I think the people doesn't see that it was necessary to talk very transparent about this, because the market was not as big as it is now. So lots of changes.
Yeah.
For the good.
Yeah.
For the good, I think.
Louise Jason Whiskey Voice is asking, how do you difference between older Irish whiskey distillate versus more recent distillate flavor-wise?
In order to really kind of answer that properly, I would need to have a lineup of new make distillate from 29 years ago, you know, and I don't, quite frankly. The one thing I'll say is that, like, all of the older whiskey stocks that I have in stock are of tremendous quality, to be frank. The cask programs used way back weren't particularly brilliant, in that maybe there wasn't as much thought given to wood programs, specifically, like way back in the day in some places. But there wasn't that many places anyway. But that kind of evolved and changed over time. I think that all of the older distilleries, the quality that came out of there was pretty fantastic. Like, all the stocks that we have, like, one of the reasons that we can make really good whiskeys is that we have a really good baseline from the kind of three kind of key older distilleries. I don't really know yet for the younger distilleries. Like, we're just starting to buy in, like, lots of different kind of new make from very different places. Everything is that I've seen to date, like, there's been no clangers, you know, and I've tasted a lot of craft American whiskeys, for example. And there's a lot of dreadful stuff over there, quite frankly. But our technical file and the kind of constraints that we have, and the kind of, there's only a couple of ways you can make whiskey. You know, it's hard to sort of get that wrong if you're not distilling from quinoa, which a lot of people are in craft distilleries all over the place. So to date, I think the standard is pretty high. You know, it'll only get better as people get into the swing of using their stills and get over their first kind of year, 2-3 years of distillation, and figure out the quirks of the stills and that kind of thing. But it's in a much better place than I would say American craft distilling is, for example, which is all over the place. Yeah,
really good. One question, which I think is very interesting: what's your favorite barrel in the rack house at the moment?
I mean,
I know mine.
I also know mine.
It's one of the eights, you know, the eight. There's a whole series of 1991 casks in Irish whiskey that I call them the 8 series, and I tend to buy them anytime I see them. Mind you, the price of them now is astronomical. I'm probably going to stop buying them. So it's a 1991 sherry butt. That was one of the first casks that we bought, and about 9 months ago, I actually said to my directors, like, we have a board of directors on the business, I said, you know what, lads, we're not selling this cask. I don't really care how much the market value is. I couldn't care less. It's not going to be a chosen, you know, it probably should be a chosen, but we're never selling this cask. It is just this most delightful sherry bomb, you know, comforting, layered, delicious cask that I go back to all the time. I've gone back to it, you know, during this whole COVID-19 thing. It's a weird time, right? It's a very weird time. So all I drink at the moment is the Chosen, because it's the end of the world.
Certainly.
And if I'm not drinking the Chosen, I'm drinking the sherry butt, because it is just my favorite cask. It's like one of the first ones that we ever sourced, and anytime anybody special comes, like I pull it out and I taste from it, and I just have a real emotional connection to it. And we're kind of growing older together, and I really love that. So that's it. That's my favorite cask. It happens to be a 1991 sherry butt. It's delish.
Yeah.
Very good.
So right next to the sherry butt is another 1991 cask.
Yes.
So as Louise mentioned, in the rack house and with all of our whiskies, we categorize everything into flavor blocks, and this cask belongs to the smoky bacon flavor block. And it is so divine. Like it's drinking smoky bacon, and I'm a vegetarian, but it's good stuff. It's really good stuff.
That's why you drink it.
It's actually called, like, the name of it in our cask tracking system is smoky bacon. That is literally
so
what it's called.
But I will never forget my first time. So I started with JJ Corry just over a year ago. And my very first time visiting the farm was actually when Axiom Brands came to visit. It was back in January last year. So I arrived in with all of the guys from Axiom Brands, and Louise was obviously trying to impress everyone with all our amazing whiskey. So my first ever whiskey that I tasted from JJ Corry was that smoky bacon cask. And then and then the sherry butt, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best job ever. And then I remember we went on to the baby grain, the baby malts, and we all got to debone our own casks. I was just like, this is savage. This is so cool. But yeah, that smoky bacon cask. Louise, if you want to keep that one for me, just saying.
No, I think that already has a home. That's probably going to Asia. I think that has a home. But
guess I'm going to Asia. So,
Mareike, what's your favorite cask? What's yours?
Yeah, as I do like more the bourbon cask, I really like the 2002 single malt cask, which we also used at the Irish Whiskey Freunde. I think there was just a bit less left in the casks, and I can connect that because Christian, he was asking if you do beer finishes, but he doesn't like it. And I have to say, Christian, yes, I did that.
Yeah.
So our next release will be the exactly the blend of the Irish Whiskey Freunde, but finished in an IPA cask, and it's really delicious.
Yeah. So Mareike, you were here in the summertime, right?
Yeah.
And we decided. So we did that Whiskey Freunde blend, and then you had asked about the IPA cask, and we have a local brewery called Western Herd, and they make my favorite IPA, which is called Blue Jumper, which is a very nutty.
The best.
Yeah, it's a very nutty IPA. Like, it's not like mosaic. It's not, it's not kind of mosaic. It's not like fruity. It's just a really nutty IPA. And so we took an older cask, and then we gave it a medium toast. We sent it to the cooperage, and we gave it a medium toast, and then we sent it to Western Herd, the brewery, and they filled it with Blue Jumper IPA for a few months, maybe 3 or 4 months, I think. And then I said to Eric, okay, empty the whiskey cask and then keep all of the IPA for me.
Yes.
And I kept it all.
Very good.
Just one big strong.
Yeah, and then we gave it a wash, and then we put the blend in there, and it was in there it's actually being disgorged probably tomorrow by me, because there's nobody else on site, but we're disgorging it now. And it's really interesting actually how it's turned out. I think we're going to bottle it at 43%, Mareike.
Yeah.
Is that right? I think that's what we agreed. And it's really, really interesting. Like, it's kind of a melding of two of my favorite things. Like, I did love that blend anyway that we did in the summertime, and I think it's a really nice kind of finish. And I think it's an interesting IPA influence as well, because it's not an IPA, but kind of not as you know it. It's not that hoppy kind of IPA that a lot of people are using. It's a much more nuttier, rounder kind of an IPA.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first one we've ever done, and it was all Mareike's idea. So delighted to work with you on that.
Thank you. Yeah, so here are so many questions. Maybe I answer some. So someone is asking about the Irish Whiskey Freunde release. This is sold out. There's nothing left. So then Misha is asking about stout casks. So I can tell you that I just had an idea today, but Louise doesn't know that. So I will inform her. And then there was some, so Thorsten would like to share the last drop of the bacon whiskey with you, Niamh. And he's asking if some pot still releases are planned.
He's asking what? Say it again.
If you will do a bottling of pot still whiskey.
Okay, so I will not do a pot still whiskey until I have a maybe 5 or 10 year old pot still. So we have some pot still in the rack house, and I'm sorry, but I don't like it young. It tastes, it just needs more time. So we might integrate a bit of pot still this year into our wood program to see if we can help it along. But I'm not a huge fan of young pot still, and I only have like 3 and 4 year olds in the rack house. But I am buying it at the moment. Like, I'm buying baby pot still, but you won't see it from us for a very long time. It just needs more time, I feel like.
Yeah, I have the same opinion. I think pot still needs to be a bit older. We lost Niamh. I think maybe her internet
probably died.
Yeah, maybe she will be back soon. Okay, so then here, will there be any blender classes? Maybe this is something interesting when you open for tours. Maybe you are thinking about doing some blender classes on site.
Yeah, so this year we were opening for tours, and we hired a tourism manager to manage all of our amazing bookings. We had about 600, 700 people who were going to come through, very small groups of up a maximum of like 10 people. And we had a whole program written out for them, ready to go, including private blending classes and things like that. But it's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
For reasons. So let's see what happens when all this is over. But yes, certainly next year we'll be open for by appointment only tours again. Like, our intention was to be open now and to offer kind of basic tours just for small groups, but also to offer blending classes and blend your own classes and things like that. So the answer to that is yes, but all of this has delayed our plans for a while.
Yeah, I think it's like everything was planned and now everything is delayed at the moment. So here were a lot of comments about the battalion. I have a bottle on my back here. Maybe we can have just a short talk about that. Do you have one?
I've got one. I've got it.
Very good. Me too. I have batch 1. Yeah.
Yeah, this is batch 2. So so the deal with this is that I like tequila, I like mezcal anyway. And what I really wanted to do with the battalion, the actual flavor that I was going after was the kind of mesquite smokiness that you get in mezcal, right? So there's a couple of American craft distilleries that do kind of mesquite smoked whiskey, and I love that flavor profile. And that's the same flavor profile as a mezcal, depending on the mezcal that you get. So I wanted to get that kind of Mexican smoke onto an Irish whiskey, and we didn't do that at all. It didn't work at all. So I just got like 4 casks. I got like 2 mezcal casks, 2 tequila casks, and I just said we'll put some grain and malt into them, and then we'll do a blend and see what happens. It was just an experiment, and that's where this came from.
Yeah, it's
and
really
after
good.
A couple of months, after a couple of months, we realized we're not going to get that smoky flavor at all. But what we are going to get is those kind of agave, kind of vegetal kind of tones that you get more so from tequila. So we've kind of honed in on that really, and that's what we kind of chased after in terms of the blend, in terms of the proportions of tequila cask versus mezcal cask. And it was a very small batch, like it was 12 in total, like between the European version and the American version, it was 12 or 1,300 bottles, probably less. And they were actually different blends, because I realized after the European version we needed to dial down the mezcal and dial up the tequila. So so that's what it's all about. It is going to become part of the core portfolio, because I really like it. And it's going to be all grain moving forward, and it's going to be all tequila cask moving forward, because that's what works better. The malt was superseding, it was overpowering the cask influence. We don't need it in there. The grain took the influence a lot better. And we've also we're working with a tequila distillery directly in Mexico to get our casks from there. So they're fresher casks. Because for the experiment, I got my casks from a cooperage in Maine in the United States. So we're going direct now to Mexico for those casks. So this will become part of the core portfolio moving forward, basically.
Very good. So Niamh is back.
Yeah.
Get it back.
My computer jammed. It was like, everything just froze. So I hopped on back on my phone. But
okay.
I'm sick and I missed the battalion tasting. Like, Louise, did you talk about did you prefer batch 1 or 2?
No, you tell me, what did you think? Go on, you tell us what you thought of it.
So I have a massive love for batch 1, and I think it's because like both Germany and the UK got the biggest allocation. So it just has a very special place in my heart. But
yeah,
I feel like it's very 50-50 on who loves the all grain version of batch 2 versus batch 1, which is malt and grain. So yeah, gun to my head, I think I would go batch 1 above batch 2 personally.
Sucks to be you. Not happening.
Not today, Satan.
So a lot of Germans are drinking battalion tonight. So but they all have batch 1. They all have batch 1.
Yeah. Like at Nuremberg, Mareike, like so many people walked away with their own bottle of battalion. Yeah. And I love saying, it's the world's first tequila and mezcal influence, and people are like, what? And they're like, oh, I hate tequila, and oh, absolutely no way. But then when they sit down and taste it and hear the story and the process of making the blend, they're like, oh my God, this is delicious, and I need it in my life straight away.
Yeah.
Like, we sold so many, like, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
I'll tell
a question.
I'll tell you the battalion story though before we go on.
Yeah.
So we have so when we made this last year, it was the summertime, the battalion, and so we got into casks and we put the grain and the mezcal in them, and they're like, so our whole kind of rack house is kind of it's all under bond, right? So everything is sitting there tax free, and I wanted to kind of push the cask influence. So the kind of philosophy that we're kind of trying to work on is that we don't do finishes per se, rather we do cask influences. For no other reason that I think it's just a bit more of an accurate description of what we do. Like we're trying to get whatever was in the cask before to have an effect on the existing whiskey rather than to finish it off. We're trying to give it an extra layer. So it was the summertime. It was very hot summer last year, actually hotter the year before, but it was still hot summer. So what we used to do is that during the daytime, we would roll out the 2 tequila, 2 mezcal casks that we had to the southern side of the rack house. and we would just leave them there to kind of cook in the sun for a couple of hours, and then we'd roll them back in at night. And that just meant that like the expansion and the contraction of the liquid inside the cask was a lot more aggressive, and we got a lot more of those kind of tequila mezcal flavors out of them. So that's something that we've decided to do for some of our more unique, different kind of finishes during the summertime to kind of accelerate our influence a little bit more. But it really worked. You know, it was an interesting thing to see that sort of the physics of that at work, and to see how quickly and how intensely those flavors kind of came out of the wood using that method. It was pretty interesting.
Really good.
I don't know that anybody else does that. We do it. We do that.
Really good. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think we have. There was one more question if you do a peated whiskey, and there was one who was coming in here later asking about distillery. So you're not a distillery, you're a whiskey bonder. You won't never be a distillery. Yeah, and do you plan to release a peated whiskey?
Yeah, I love peated whiskey. I'm a massive fan. We'll definitely do that. Yeah. I don't know.
Very good.
Definitely. I love it. It's like, if I had my way, we would just do nothing but peated whiskey all the time. Like, I love it. So that'll definitely happen. Yeah. Very
good. So, yeah. So we have lots of fans here for Battalion and Gail, and yeah, Michael Simon was asking about the difference between batch 1 and 2. I think you explained that. And yeah, here was some discussions about the transparency of Irish whiskey. I think we have been spoken to that. Jason Whiskey was asking, would there be any room? There was one question earlier, if you plan to do single casks. Like our IPA is now like a blended single cask. So maybe.
Like the Chosen was a single cask. You know, if we're going to do single cask, it's going to be kind of up there, you know, like way high up. Like, but you have to remember the batches that we do are tiny. You know, they're basically single cask batches anyway. They're a couple of 100 bottles, like they're nothing. So whiskey, what Bonder's Blend number 2, how many bottles was that? That was like 90 bottles.
90 bottles, and no, it was 60, and the number 3 was 90 bottles.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff, like that's partial disgorgement of casks. Like it's smaller and more exclusive even than a single cask. Like,
yeah.
But when we're going to do a single cask, it's because a cask has said to us, I must be a single cask. Then we will pull it out to be a single cask, and it'll be something amazing like the Chosen. But other than that, we're all about the blend.
Yeah. Okay. And then Jason Whiskey Wise is asking if you do any rum cask plans.
Yes. So JJ Corry used to sell rum from the Caribbean, and I was just in Kentucky recently, and I got a good line on some rum casks. So yes, we will be doing rum casks. I have them on order for sure from the Caribbean.
Okay, and then another question from the US, if the Hansen will be also available in the US?
Yes, probably September at this point, yeah.
Oh, great. And Marty is great. He would like to ask what's our favorite Bundesplant number 2 or 3, and if you will ever release a Bundesplant number 1.
Okay, so do people know the story of this? So
I think Marty knows it a bit, yes, but not all.
I think I know who Marty is. I think Marty's been here. So the story, what do I have back here? I've got 3 back here, I think. Yeah, I've got 3. That's 3, right?
Yeah.
So the Bonder's Blend number 2 was the first Bonder's Blend we ever did.
Yeah.
And we called it number 2 because I was like, oh shit, like we'll definitely do a number 1. I'll save number 1 for something else. We never did it.
No. And it was just the name coming up, so not really. Yeah. What's
I
the
was like, what
bonus
do we
blend?
call this? We'll call it Bonder's Blend. But I was like, Mareike, you can't have number one. I have to have number. I have to have number one.
You are number one.
Two, and I gave you number three. And
Yeah.
number one does not exist yet, but it is going to exist
Once, maybe,
sometime.
sometimes.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So we
But
went
not.
straight to number two. There must be something else about that. I'm sure it was supposed to exist, or I had a plan for it and it didn't happen. But there is no such thing as Bonder's Blend number one yet.
No. And then what's better? I think number 3 is better than number 2.
I love number 2. I think number 2.
Yeah, it's also good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So when I came on at JJ Corry, you had just released Bonder's Blend number 2 before I started.
okay.
So obviously it sold out like pretty much straight away. So
Yeah.
the first time I tasted it, remember it was at Stefan's Hotel during the summer when we did the Whiskeybonding masterclass.
No, that
And
was number 3.
No, it was number 2.
Oh yeah, outside. Yeah. In the evening. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
Yes. And I couldn't believe it that there was one bar left in the world that was selling that by the dram. It was so cool.
Yeah.
They still sell that by the dram, and they have several bottles of that, by the way. I've seen them on the shelf.
Stefan is Stefan is watching. You can't tell that. Yeah.
But yeah, someday we'll do Bonder's Blend number 1, and we'll do like one bottle or something.
No, 3. 1 for each.
3 bottles.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think. Okay. Yeah, Stefan has the best idea because next year Irish Whiskeys will be 10 years, and for that you do Bonder's Blend number 1.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that is a good shout.
For that, maybe we do it. Yeah.
Maybe sounds good. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So Jason Whiskey Wise is writing a lot, and he would love to visit your warehouse, and would totally be up for a blending session.
Well, he was supposed to be here. He and I are talking tomorrow night, I think.
No, that's Jason Stover. Jason Whiskey Wise.
Oh, Jason Whiskey Wise.
Yeah.
Jason Whiskey Wise.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
You were logged in.
Yeah. So, and the best comment for Bonder's Blend number 2 from Christian is, it was a fail. Didn't know what went wrong with the sample. It tasted like a dead cat. I told him that he was totally wrong. So, yeah.
Listen, everybody is entitled to their opinion, and if you have had the pleasure in your life to taste dead cat,
you
are more than welcome to compare Bonder's Blend number 2 to us.
Very good.
You go right ahead.
Personally, I don't know what a dead cat tastes like, so
I don't know. Very good.
We're all entitled to our opinion. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, Jason is writing. Whiskey Jason is not Jason Whiskey Wise, but we are both great, so very good.
This is also true.
Very good. Okay. So maybe one thing for the Germans, Louise and I set up a little promotion for April. So Louise had lots of very cool base caps from JJ Corry, and I will get some. And I will set up a promotion, and for every 2 bottles you order from JJ Corry, you will get such a base cap. They are very cool.
A very cool baseball hat. I don't have one here. I'm just trying to look around. I don't have one in front of me, but they're really nice hats.
They're really cool.
If you follow me on Instagram, I wear them all the time.
I will get a picture, and then I will set up a promotion, and you will be all informed. Oh yeah, Wayne. Sorry, Wayne, I missed your question. He already was asking earlier. If you can tell something about wedding number 1 and 2 that won the awards in February.
Yes. Okay. So this is one of those things that kind of again got really messed up with the COVID-19, like, and all of that sort of stuff. So we had all of, you know, we had a lot of products a lot of whiskeys kind of in development over the last year to kind of come out this year essentially. And a lot of them now have either been stopped or delayed or whatever. So vatting number 1 and 2, like, we have really good stocks of 1991 malt, and a lot of it actually goes into the Gale. Not a lot of it, but a good chunk of it goes into the Gale. But some of it doesn't. Like, so what we started to do is we started to do expressions of the 1991. So I think I can say this. I can probably say this because it's not a marketing point, and it's not something that we will ever discuss necessarily. But we did 2 different vattings of 1991 casks, right? Probably about between 12 and 15 individual casks in each vatting, but components of those casks. And then we vatted those in some Macallan casks for a period of time, and just as to see kind of what would happen with those. Like, we just kind of let it sit and marry essentially, and we just made literally probably about 60 bottles of each, maybe a little more, maybe 70 bottles of each, at cask strength. So that was actually supposed to kind of be launched now, basically. It's not fancy like the Chosen. It's not like a fancy Chosen bottling or anything like that. Like, it's not a designy thing. It's just a really kind of pretty, what I consider to be spectacular expression of vatting of my 1991s that can't be single casks, essentially. So that's what that is. It's called the vatting number 1. There's actually a number 1 and the vatting number 2, and they're very kind of limited releases. So that's what they are. I don't really know now when or if they're gonna get released. Like, maybe in September. I don't know, but it's very, again, limited quantities, but of that 29-year-old stuff, because a lot of that 29-year-old that we have is tremendous. Like, it's beautiful. Those 8 casks are fantastic. So that's what that is. And the reason you haven't seen it out there is that all of this COVID-19 stuff has stopped all of that development.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a major scoop.
Nobody knows that, actually. Yeah, that's
I'm here sitting, I'm like, oh my god. That's like Irish Whiskeys exclusive. No one else has heard that story.
Well,
very good.
It's going to come out sooner or later, so
yeah.
But it is not a Chosen thing. We will do another kind of beautiful, gorgeous Chosen expression. Certainly not this year. Absolutely not. We will do it when the cask tells us the time is right. When we have about 4 or 5 casks that are sitting, and we know that we have them earmarked for single cask expressions, and none of them are there yet. So at some point, one of them will tell us this is the year, and we'll know we have to disgorge that year, and then we'll do a beautiful kind of Chosen thing again. But it will absolutely not be this year. I'd be very doubtful if it was next year again. But that is something that we do. That's a thing that we do. We like to do that. It's great fun to do it. Wouldn't you agree, Niamh? It's not stressful at all.
Oh my god, so much fun!
Very good.
Fun.
Yeah.
Ignore these grey hairs. Great fun. Can't wait to do the next one.
Dennis is asking a question if you also have Irish oak casks or will do that.
No, maybe down the line. Like, Irish oak is the raw. You know, it's difficult. It's good for a finish. You know, you're gonna like, put something in there and take it out after 3 months. Like, it's just the wrong kind of oak to do anything with. Like, we might moving forward, if I can find a tree locally that's appropriate for being turned into a cask that has fallen over in a storm or something, we might do that. But we're looking more actually now towards Eastern European oak, because traditionally actually in Ireland, that's what they used a lot of back in the day, because again, it's that tighter grain of oak. So we're looking at that a lot. We obviously use a bit of French oak and American oak, but Irish oak is very, very hard to work with from a maturation standpoint. It's just too porous and it gives too much flavor. So maybe down the line, but it's not something we look at particularly closely. It's too tricky for us right now.
Okay, so he was saying that he might bring some Dutch stroop waffles. I don't know what that is.
Say it again.
I think he's a Dutch guy. So,
okay.
Yeah. And then I think one last question is, did you learn to drive the forklift?
Did you not see my video?
I have seen your video, but that was the question.
Did the beep stop beeping?
Yeah.
So, I mean, very often people think all that stuff is just for social media. I am going to get a forklift license because I have to get it. I have to know how to drive that thing. So we were supposed to have a training for the forklift like last week to get our licenses. So right now I'm completely alone on site and I have to lift stuff around and move it around. So yeah, I'm learning how to drive the forklift. I'm a very bad driver anyway. Like I'm a very kind of safe, slow driver. So I'll be very safe with the forklift. It's gonna be fine.
Very good. Okay. So here are no questions left. I think so. Maybe I've overseen some, but I will go through the comments and then we can write some answers afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was great to have you here in the live stream. For the Germans, Irish Whiskeys is still delivering. You can order. And we have left the gay batch to the Flintlock and the Battalion. And I will get the hats from Louise. And there will be 2 more expressions coming in, hopefully for May. Yeah, okay. That's the news for Germany.
If I were you guys, I would be ordering the Flintlock. There is, I actually said to Mareike a couple of months ago that I wanted to buy back what she had on the Flintlock because there's none left in the world. So that's, if you're going to buy anything during lockdown, that's
very delicious.
Yeah.
It's very good.
That's your apocalyptic dram, definitely. It's amazing. For sure.
So thank you very much. Stay all safe.
Thank you.
And thank you for all watching us and see you soon. Bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.